Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, summarizing the use of Roth IRAs, part 5 in our series on selecting between an IRA and a Roth IRA, sponsored by LifeSize Solutions and the Society for Financial Awareness. Well, welcome to our 5th segment. We're talking about summarizing the use of Roth IRAs, and I want to just set you up for this idea. Remember, I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just talking about raw data. I'm trying to be agnostic. I don't want to be a predictor of doom and gloom. I just want to look at the math. So when I'm looking at the gross public debt, total percentage of GDP and average tax bracket, and you look over the years in 1913, remember, Teddy Roosevelt, one of my favorite presidents and Republican on top of it, he instituted the first income tax. Some people say to his infamy, right? So, but he invented the first taxable, the first income tax, and income tax was very high back in the day. And so when you look at the progressive system, by the time we got into World War II and we were trying to recover, tax brackets were awfully high. But look what happened as we moved down, we started paying less tax, and all of a sudden our debt, our annual public debt started growing. Do you think it's reasonable that if we're at 20 trillion in debt and 80 trillion in obligations like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, plus government pensions, and remember, I haven't even addressed the state issues yet. When you look at this, is that number predicting higher brackets or lower brackets? So that's the first thing I want you to look at. This is the math. I don't know how long we can kick the can down the road. Sooner or later, we're going to have to pay the piper. And when the interest rate, the interest on our debt and our obligations becomes greater than our revenue, we will have passed the point of no return. So I just want you to look at these numbers. These are true numbers that could really make your decision-making process change, because you're thinking, hey, instead of the conventional wisdom, which we used to have as planners, that we'll pay less taxes in retirement, the odds are now we're probably going to pay more taxes in retirement. This is the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, their estimates. Now's the time for tax diversification. When you look at the highest tax bracket in the land at today, and I'm just giving you an average of 35%, and you look at what we think it might turn out to be, not only in 2050, they're talking about maybe it could be as high as 66, or maybe to pay off these bills, we're going to add 2082, and hopefully I'll be gone by then, but it'll be 88%. When you look at these numbers, even the low bracket, the 10%, look at it, it goes to 19 in 2050, and maybe 25. Even the lowest and most lowest brackets of Americans that are in this low bracket are going to be paying higher numbers. This is the CBO estimate, not my estimate. This is their thinking right now. The highest tax bracket, middle America, and the lowest tax bracket, and what they predict they could be to be able to take care of our loans. Nobody's talking about this, of course, in the legislation and the president. Nobody's actually addressing these issues. And these issues are really tough to deal with. I mean, I'm just trying to bring up the numbers. Now, summary. Traditional IRA versus Roth IRA. Traditional IRA, I get a pre-tax contribution that grows tax-free. I'd rather use a phrase, you get a tax deduction, it accumulates tax-deferred. Because if I say it accumulates tax-free, that suggests that it's free all the time. I'd rather say that you do get a tax deduction and it grows tax-deferred. No taxes. Remember, when you take constructive receipt of your actual traditional IRA or 401k, there's no more basis. Your contributions, you got a deduction for that. So all of it is exposed to taxes. And all of that exposing of taxes on your traditional IRA or 401k, all that income flows over to the provisional income test for Social Security and also taxes that. So you have you're getting double taxation really, especially when you think that the government told us years ago, decades ago, they were never going to tax Social Security, and of course that's what they're doing now. Required minimum distributions for RMDs, they are required, and I cannot tell you the headache that seniors go through day in and day out at 70 and a half and forget or didn't calculate their correct RMDs and have to pay the difference, 50% penalty on whatever they were, the difference, what they paid and what they should have paid. And then there's distributions are taxed, treated as ordinary income. Excuse me. Now, adjusting gross income, AGI limit, may impact the deductibility of contributions. So remember, if you make so much money, sometimes the actual phase-out provision comes in and you're not allowed to take as much deductibility as you'd like. Right now, they're pretty fluent, though. They're pretty good about IRAs and and 401ks, there's some pretty big numbers there if you really want to take advantage of it. But again, depending upon your tax bracket and depending upon if your employer is actually giving you any money or matching it, that could be your decision-making process. And remember, $5,500 contribution limit under age 50, 65 above age 50 for regular traditional IRAs. And again, you get the tax deductibility. Now on the Roth, because I've already made my decision, I've calculated my effective tax bracket, I'm really not getting a match from my employer, so I'm going to start looking at Roth from the day one. I'm not going to worry about converting Roth. I'm going to buy a Roth just like this day one. So my tax contributions grow tax-free, although I'd like to say tax deferred, but it's going to be tax-free, so I'm okay with that language. No RMDs, no required minimum distributions. That means if there's no RMDs on my Roth, that means that there's no penalty. And if there's no income off my RMD that's reportable, and I have no penalties, then my Social Security, at least as it relates to a Roth distribution, will not trigger any Social Security benefit taxation. The combination of using some of these big items like a Roth IRA, an HSA account, reverse mortgage, cash value life insurance can really help you diversify your tax in your taxable issues in your portfolio. But more than that, it's going to leave you with more money. Again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you manage your tax situation during retirement, it can yield 10 to 15% more cash flow if you'll just sit down and learn how to game the IRS code. It's basic, it's easy to do, and with all the software that's out there right now, you should be able to do this. But again, I always say go to your financial advisor or your tax consultant, and they'll be able to walk you through the mechanics and how to really manage your taxable events. Now, qualified distributions taken at least 5 years after the creation of an account can also be withdrawn tax-free. So keep in mind, there's some little games to be played here. I could look at this as an option. Most people aren't going to do that, but I'm just saying you could. And then $5,500 contribution limit under age 50 and 65 for age above age 50. So I get the catch-up provision. So if my wife and I are both doing an IRA and we're doing $6,500 because we're over 50, we're able to put away 13 grand every year. And if you're still under 65, you can put another, I think it's $7,900 through your HSA account. So, I mean, those two are absolutely monster ideas. And remember, your HSA accounts not only comes out free, it's tax deductible. And it says, they don't offer tax deductibility. Now, the good and the bad about that. Okay, I wasn't in a high tax bracket anyways. I wasn't saving that much in taxes. I was only in the 20% blended rate. I don't care if it doesn't really give me the deduction on that. If I was in a serious bracket where I'm paying 20% capital gains, 3.8% surcharge on my capital gains, so I'm at 23.8%, I might be concerned about the deductibility of a Roth. If I'm getting a match on my employer's 401k, I'm not doing the Roth first then. I'm taking that deduction and I'm taking the easy free money from my employer. I'm doing that first regardless of Roth or whatever. But for most of Americans that are not getting a match and are in the low 20s in blended rate, you should be looking at only a Roth IRA contribution in your HSA accounts. Those should be middle America because the deduction isn't really worth it and I'm not getting a match. If you take the traditional IRA versus the Roth IRA, you should be able to compare which works for you. When you sit down with your financial advisor, he'll compare the traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. If you already have qualified monies, you may want to look at a strategy, and I like to do it over years if I have time, to try to convert some of my traditional IRAs or my 401k and get them over to a Roth IRA so that I can start to make the conversion and pay a little bit of tax today rather than pay more tax tomorrow and infringe on my Social Security benefits from getting taxed. I want to look at those ideas. So traditional, if I'm on a high tax bracket and I'm getting a match, I'm still doing 401k and traditional IRAs. But if I'm in a Roth IRA position where I'm a low tax bracket, I'm not getting a match, I might as well do Roth and HSA accounts all day long. To me, that makes mechanical sense, and you're going to be using more money. The tax advantages are so great that during your retirement, you'll be able to use more money cash flow-wise, and you'll be able to actually have a greater opportunity to pay things that are going to have a little bit of inflation with it, groceries, gasoline, utilities, things of that nature, because you're not having to pay tax bill on this. You're able to apply it to your inflation. And again, a little side note, some product lines, I'm thinking of annuities specifically, will allow you to actually place a cost of living adjustment on the annuity itself so it can keep up with inflation. Keep in mind, Social Security has, at least in the last 8 years, 3 times it didn't pay any in advance. So it's not a given. So remember, you want to be able to look at all these things in your retirement: inflation, taxes, conservative, your risk tolerance, and can you delay till 70 and a half for Social Security and your qualified plan. To me, that's the way to look at it. I've given you a whole week's worth of understanding. Is a Roth a good deal for you? You'll have to understand it from your taxable event. You'll have to understand it. Are you getting contributions matched? When you get down to those kind of ideas and you can make your decision, then you can choose between a Roth IRA, traditional, and a regular and a tax-free Roth IRA with no deductibility. I want to thank you for watching our series on selecting between an IRA and a Roth IRA, sponsored by LifeSize Solutions and the Society for Financial Awareness. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game.